Hello, and welcome to another episode of Brentcast Transformers School. You got this right. I'm bringing you another video on the 13 primes, and today's prime is Vector Prime. So, here's everything you need to know about Vector Prime. Vector Prime is the appointed guardian of space and time. He's so old that in many timelines, the locals call him the first Autobot. He's very powerful as he can warp both time and space, but excessive use can make him extremely weak. His powers allow him to traverse the multiverse at will. Unicron Trilogy. Vector Prime was created by Primus at the very beginning of its struggle with Unicron, drawn from the sublime material of a universe at the far end of entropy. During the long dormancy of Primus and Unicron at the beginning of time, Vector Prime retreated from the march of history to prepare for when his skills would once again be called upon. From this isolation, he watched the greatest victories and defeats of the Transformers race across the various timelines, intervening only when his hand was needed to preserve the balance of time. However, the awakening of Primus and Unicron returned Vector Prime to active service, following the wake of Unicron across the multiverse to prevent or restore what damage the Dark God had inflicted with its contaminating presence. After the Power Links battles, Primus attempted to lock Unicron's essence away in the center of a newborn sun, but this plan backfired and the sun collapsed into a black hole, also known as the Unicron Singularity. This threatened the multiverse itself. So, Vector Prime was called back to Cybertron to assist the Autobots in locating artifacts that would destroy the black hole. During the Autobots' search, Vector Prime would routinely confer with Alpha Trion on their progress. During one such visit, Unicron's heralds, Ramjet and Nemesis Prime, attacked Cybertron, prompting Alpha Trion to recruit some extra-dimensional help in the form of Sentinel Maximus. No sooner had Maximus arrived than Ramjet and Nemesis came blasting into Alpha Trion's chamber. Vector dueled with Ramjet, but was unable to prevent him from heavily damaging Alpha Trion and destroying Vector Sigma. After placing Alpha Trion in a repair chamber, Vector Prime explained to Sentinel Maximus the extent of the peril they had faced. It was Ramjet's plan that Nemesis Prime would unleash his Death Matrix to destroy their creator. Deducting that their opponents would likely next strike at the Callus Prime Energon Reserve's control, Vector Prime and his allies preemptively traveled there to defend it. Sure enough, another one of Unicron's pawns, Dark Scorpionok, soon turned up and attacked the facility. Dark Scorpionok was felled, but Vector Prime came to realize that the shambling creature had acted as a distraction, while Ramjet and Nemesis Prime made their way towards their true target, the chamber housing Primus's essence. Deep within Cybertron, Vector Prime opened a warp gate and traveled with Sentinel Maximus to head off their enemies before the wicked machinations came to fruition. Vector Prime and Ramjet's fight left the chamber and took them high above Cybertron. Ramjet offered Vector Prime another option to his plan. It was within Vector Prime's power to restore Unicron from the Singularity, dooming this Cybertron but saving all others. Vector Prime refused, claiming that they could restore balance to the multiverse without saving Unicron. Through Vector Prime was able to defeat Ramjet and seal him away in another dimension. This act weakened him considerably. The Guardian of Space and Time returned to the Autobots on Earth and left Cybertron in the care of Runover, a Minicon who had taken the reins of what remained of Vector Sigma. While on Cybertron of Primax 509.28 Epsilon, Nexus Prime decided to tell his companion, Aquarius, about the ancient artifact he was trying to find, the Star Saber. As he explained to Aquarius that the artifact was originally intended to serve good Transformers, the face of Vector Prime flashed through his mind. Eventually, Nexus succeeded in finding all the pieces of the shattered sword and united the rebuilt blade with the Terminus blade with the intention of strengthening the multiverse and making the walls between dimensions less permeable. Vector Prime and the rest of the 13 were drawn to this momentous event from across space and time, but as a conscious of Nexus's actions. Vector and his brothers and sisters ceased to exist as multiversal singularities. They were splintered into infinite variations of themselves and scattered through the multiverse, sentient reoccurring themes, each appearing in their own way, if at all, in all the worlds of the multiverse. Vector Prime was last seen dueling Galvatron in an existence after death. Aligned continuity. Stern, serious, Vector Prime considered himself a force of order and balance in the universe, a mere extension of his creator Primus. His powers over time and space allowed him to create and prevent temporal paradoxes to suit his needs, and even distort reality as he saw fit. His personal artifact of power was the Blade of Time, which he could use to travel through other dimensions. He also had a badge seemingly for decoration. The second of the 13 primes to be created, Vector was a warrior prime, joining Prima, Onyx, Amalgamus, and Megatronus in the groupings among the 13. After Optimus had caused Unicron to fall into stasis, Vector Prime created a time loop around the inert form of the Chaos Bringer, ensuring he would never awaken. Like the others, however, Vector Prime was tainted by a touch of Unicron's darkness, which would make the downfall of the 13 in the aftermath. Vector joined with Prima and Alpha Trion to create rules and order for a new community and the upcoming birth of the Cybertronian species, though their rules were found restrictive by the other primes. Along with Alpha Trion and Prima, Vector was greatly confused by the romance between Solus and Megatronus. Despite this, however, Vector commissioned a new mandala from Solus. The end of the 13 came after Prima discovered that Megatronus, Quintus Prime, and Liege Maximo had worked on a secret farm of robotic creatures which Alchemist found troubling. Suspecting a sinister motive, Prima forced the rest of the 13 into a vote on the matter, and Vector voted against letting the project continue. Furious with the result of the debate, Megatronus inadvertently killed Solus in a dispute that Liege Maximo had orchestrated. Drawn by the commotion, the rest of the 13 had arrived in time to see Solus's body return to the core, its passage creating the Well of Allsparks. Even after Megatronus offered his side of the story, accusations began to fly. The investigation degenerated into a free-for-all brawl between the remaining 12 siblings, which ended with Maximo getting killed by the Requiem Blaster through uncertain means. The survivors buried Liege Maximo's remains in a chasm and held a memorial to Solus Prime in deep space. Hoping to put their ugly past behind them, the Primes then turned their attention to Cybertron and their plans for the future. They decided to use Onyx Prime's Triptych's mask to create a new race of robotic beings as Primus had created them, with Onyx, Micronus, and Optimus traveling into the well, resulting in the creation of a new wave of Cybertronian creatures, which the surviving Primes oversaw. Vector Prime's faith in his siblings, however, had long since been shattered, and he quietly retreated into another dimension when no one was looking. One way or another, his badge wound up in Vector Sigma's possession. Millennia later, Alpha Trion would gift it to Sentinel Prime. Millennia after that, Optimus reassembled the Blades of Time. That brings us to a close, and that's everything you need to know about Vector Prime. And that's all I have to say, so thanks for listening, and goodbye.